Let's jump to this story from the Daily Mail. Ladies and gentlemen, we have questions. Why did Kamala Harris not go on Joe Rogan's podcast? And well, there's a lot of speculation. She was scared. She knew she couldn't do it. The official argument was that she couldn't travel. She asked Joe to go to her. Joe said, no, we do the show, in studio. Joe went on to say that he knew that if he did that and flew out to them, there would be staff there. They would control the interview, and he didn't want to do it that way. That's not how they do the show. Well, now we have the real reason. It's simple. A Democrat insider admits the real reason Kamala Harris never sat down with Joe Rogan is because it would have upset her progressive staffers. That's right. To this cult, Joe Rogan is far right. And they said that it would have made them upset. When Rogan asked Kamala Harris to join him on the podcast, he revealed she only wanted to do an hour. Jennifer Palmieri, a liberal strategist and former senior advisor to Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, said it would have upset her far-left campaign workers. There was a backlash with some of our progressive staff that didn't want her to be on it, and how there would be a backlash, she said. Meanwhile, Rogan has continued to comment on the controversy himself, revealing things Harris refused to discuss. Quote, they had, I don't know how many conversations with my folks, but multiple conversations giving different dates, different times, different this, different that. And we knew that she was going to be in Texas, so I said open invitation. I think they had requirements on things that she didn't want to talk about. She didn't want to talk about marijuana legalization, which I thought was hilarious. That is funny. Harris posted on X that she would legalize marijuana, but there it is. He says he told Jimmy Dore during a 2020 discussion with Jimmy Dore, he said, I'd never voted right wing in my life. Never, never. I voted Democrat. Well, now you lost Joe Rogan. Congratulations. And the truth is Kamala Harris would not go on the show because Democrats are in a cult and too many staffers would have cried about it.
It's also indicative of the change between what the blob and the establishment sees as legacy media, which has always been controlled, something that they can always get their list of approved questions that they're allowed to talk about when everybody knows that now the way forward is Donald Trump and J.D. Vance go on these podcasts and do 3 hours long form and actually get their ideas out to the public. Well, they don't want to do that. What they want to do is to give you an hour, and they want to give you cue cards with what you're allowed to talk about because that's how they've controlled the narrative for the last 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah. And you're going to pay millions of people to the people who do, quote, interview you. And then they're going to come out after the fact and say, well, it's because of misinformation and disinformation that Kamala lost this election. Okay, if it's because of misinformation, you had a 3-hour free window. You did not have to pay Joe Rogan. He would have paid for you to get to Austin, Texas, to sit down with him, and you could have set the record straight. Any misinformation, disinformation, fake news, whatever, any lies out there about this candidate, she could have set that record straight. They refused to do it. And I guarantee you they didn't want to go on there because her staff would have gotten their feelings hurt because they're too weak to walk into a room with a toxic masculine person, type A alpha personality like Joe Rogan and the guys around him. And so they didn't want to they didn't want to subject themselves to that. And so here we go. Can I get to some, like there are things just looking back, Tim, something you said a minute ago. Looking back at this administration, can you go back and look at some of the weird things that I hope we can at some point get to the bottom of? Like when the dudes were showing their boobs on the White House lawn at the 4th of July party, whose bag of cocaine was it? Like, can we get to the bottom of these things?
Hunter.
I think it was Kamala's. I've seen enough interviews with the mouth chewing and the nose picking and the stuff like that. But if you go back and look at the video of that day, everybody in the Biden family standing up on the mezzanine on the front of the White House had a post-nasal drip. I mean, even Jill was sucking back a 5-pound booger. But that, I want to know more about who attacked Paul Pelosi. I need to know, is Nancy, is that silicone or is that saline? I need to figure these are real stories that I'm hoping we can get to the bottom of.
I am absolutely not interested in
any of that. The other thing is, look, their desire to just stay away from Joe Rogan, that they don't even want to interact with him, is why you got campaign ads as bad as the ones that you got. If there was anything that should have turned off everyone who was undecided, it was, hello there, fellow men. Look at these campaign ads. This is how men sit on truck beds. If you're not willing to go and sit down and talk with Joe Rogan, that's the type of campaign ad you get.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they had a couple of these, men should vote for Kamala, and they're clearly written by women. And you want to actually get guys, you could have done a 1-minute ad where she sat down with Joe Rogan, and you want to get guys, you don't need to be like, I'm a man, so I eat carburetors. That's what the guy said. And then the joke was, they were like, you mean carbonara? But the real ad that works for men is Joe Rogan being like, so what are you going to do if you become president? And then she's just like, nothing.
Get a
have no
soundbite
answer.
about aliens. Just get Joe Rogan and her talking about aliens would have won people over more than those ads.
But the Trump interview with Rogan was historically significant because you have Rogan, who at this point in time, I mean, he is the new Oprah, arguably larger than Oprah
I
ever
think,
was.
Oh yeah, bigger, way bigger.
Way bigger. The reach is bigger. The platforms are bigger. There's too many different places you can hear Rogan. And then you have the most famous man, arguably, in the history of the world, Donald Trump, in terms of his exposure and the reach that he has. I mean, globally, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. And now he sits down with somebody bigger than Oprah. This is arguably, again, to use that word, the biggest, most important interview that's ever happened in history. And she had an opportunity to go in and sit down and do that for 3 hours. Unadulterated conversation. It couldn't.
But she can't. And it's not even about, look, even when they say it would have offended the progressive staffers, I believe that's true. But Kamala was probably terrified. You know, because, look, David Pakman, you know, we've been talking about him. He made a video where he's like, Democrats won't come on my show. And media is taking off. And it's like, yeah, Democrats don't come on this show or his show because they only exist in a reality where the news is fabricated for them in advance. Yep. The challenge for Democrats in going on shows is that even if they're right, they could run afoul of what the Democrats want to be right.
True.
And, you know, Nate Silver had this, he wrote this post-mortem. I brought it the other day where he said, Republicans are happy when you agree with them some of the time. Democrats are mad if you don't agree with them all of the time. But that says something. It says that Republicans are willing to compromise and Democrats don't care if it's correct. You have to be on the other side. So if a Republican says, hey, I want to ban abortion, and you respond with, I'd like to restrict it to 12 weeks. The Republicans say, well, okay, let's talk about it. The Democrats then respond by saying, you're both far right, pro-life, and I agree with none of you. And if anyone tries to compromise in any regard, you're far right. How do you build a coalition or win government power if your position is, even when you are right, we oppose you?
Yeah. Well, this is why Kamala, a quote Democrat, cannot go in and sit down with Joe Rogan, a Democrat. You know, they can't.
Too many pitfalls from your own people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because the extreme has gotten so far off the wing to the left that it's, a theologian said years ago, he said, it's possible to get so far out in front of the people you're trying to lead that they mistake you for the enemy. And that's exactly what's happened with today's progressive left. They've gotten so far out in front of the Democratic Party that anybody that's got a fair mind, whether it's, the Bill Maher's of the world or the Joe Rogans or the Elon Musks or the Tulsi Gabbards, that they start identifying you as the enemy. And in essence, that's exactly what you've become.
Well, isn't it funny how a lot of these liberal personalities, not leftists, but liberals, are all of a sudden being like, oh, the left, man, I warned them. I can't believe it. But if you look at what they were saying a week or a month before, they were like, Trump's terrible. He can't win. Bill Maher, he's got two viral clips. One where he's like, Trump's not going to win.
Right.
He won't win. I don't care. A couple 100,000 people maybe, but no one's going to vote for him. Kamala Harris is definitely going to win the popular vote. Then afterwards he goes, this is why I hate the left, because they're snobs, they're snobby, they're brats, okay? They're brats. And I'm like, dude, you were saying that Trump could not win and Kamala would definitely get the popular vote, and she didn't even get that. Yeah. As soon as this dude realized he was on the wrong side of history, he starts moderating. And I'm here, there's some other personalities I'm not going to name, but liberal personalities are all of a sudden being like, oh, yeah, I can't believe the Democrats were lying about that. Oh, they tricked me. Yeah, please. These celebrities got paid. I don't know how much. The rumors, so there's some rumors about some of these celebrities getting paid to do these sponsorships, but none of those are confirmed. I don't know if, Brett, if any of that was
not confirmed, but we did, we have talked about it. Like most of it is just an ad.
Anyways. Seven-figure rumors.
Oh, rumors are that some people were paid like $1 million to do appearances and things like this.
Well, I mean, I heard 1.8 to Eminem. I heard $3 million to Lizzo.
I don't know if any of that's true.
We don't know, but
I mean,
but we do know that they raised $1.3 billion and then ended the campaign $20 million in debt.
Now, hold on. That's a trick of the media, though. $20 million in debt. What does that mean? You got a credit card?
Well, I mean, it depends. Yeah, but
you have debt on it.
Yeah.
So if I said you're $5,000 in debt,
yeah,
people are going to say you're broke when you may have $5,000 in the bank as well.
Yeah.
So when they came out and said Kamala Harris is $20 million in debt, I'm wondering if that's
well. The question that I have with that is they immediately continued the fundraising. Even after the election.
For a recount. Do you see that?
Yeah, for the recount. And they immediately continued. So that's what made it suspect in my mind. Because, yeah, you might have, $4,000 or $5,000 on your credit card that needs to get paid off. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out how to make the money to pay that thing off.
Now, I think I don't know for sure, but I would say that the stories are probably plants to get them to fundraise. They want people to think they're hurting. They raised $1 billion in what was it, 1 point something billion in 100 days. Yeah. So when people are saying that the money was all gone and now they're in debt, I'm like, I know they did have massive spends. You can track that stuff, but I'm telling you guys, when someone says, "Oh, they're in debt," and I'm like, like I'll tell you this, I have $1 million in debt. Okay, because I have a mortgage. So it's not really $1 million mortgage. I'm saying I have all this debt. And if someone came out and said, "Wow, Tim's $1 million in debt," they try to make it like that. The average person goes, "Whoa, I must have $0." Trump has that famous story where he told, I can't remember if it was Eric or Don Jr., he pointed to a homeless guy and said, "See that homeless man? He's worth more money than me." Because Trump had X amount of liabilities, but, X minus whatever in assets. But Trump's super rich. He's got penthouses, he's got cars, he's got millions and billions in the bank, but he owes more on all of his businesses. Yeah. So they come out and this is the trick the Democrats play. They say Donald Trump filed for bankruptcy 5 times. To the average person, hearing someone filing for bankruptcy 1 time is rare and shocking. But for a guy who started 500 plus businesses, who's a billionaire, 5 bankruptcies is like, okay, some businesses often fail, and this guy's got hundreds of them, so sure, he's got bankruptcies. Yeah. But regular Democrats, when you go and talk to them, even prominent liberals, they're like, he's not a good businessman. He filed bankruptcy 5 times. And it's like, oh, which of the 500 businesses did he file bankruptcy on? What does bankruptcy mean? Does it mean the business no longer operates and there's no money? You know what really bothers me? When I was working for Fusion, we were a mile from Trump Doral. And all of these liberals and lefties who worked there were making fun of Trump, being like, whatever happened to all this business? Trump Steaks is gone. Trump Magazine, where's that? What happened to Trump Water? And they were laughing about it. And guess what? I got a room at Trump Doral, and I had a Trump steak, and I had a Trump bottle of water, and I read Trump Magazine. And I said, you people are nuts. These are internal products that he produces for his hotels. So when you can get Trump Water today, and they're like, nope, it's out of business. You can get Trump Steaks. You can't buy them on TV anymore, but they make them for the hotels. They lie to trick people into thinking Trump's failed.
It's also the same people who are like, he's not successful because his dad loaned him $1 million. I'm like, that $1 billion is like way more.
Well, I've often told people, I said, okay, $1 million is 1,000 thousands, right? Yeah. So if I give you $1,000, do you know how to turn that 1,000 into $1 million? I mean, to take $1 million and turn it into $1 billion or multiple billions, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Look at the lottery winners, right? How many of them end up broke and destitute because they don't know how to use their money?
And Trump, that has been changing.
That has?
It's been changing now because, I think it was 15 or so years ago, there was a wave of documentaries about how people won the lottery, bought golden statues of themselves. Well, that's the thing. It's like, what happens if we are you familiar with the cargo cults, World War II? We're flying planes over these islands that we've never made contact with before. These people have no idea what planes are. They build effigies begging for the planes to come back because they'd bring supplies and things like this. They thought it was like gods or whatever. So when you go to people, what would happen if aliens came down to Earth and gave one human advanced alien technology that effectively made them immortal, invincible, and they could vaporize someone by snapping their fingers? They'd go nuts. The average person would probably just go nuts and go around blowing things up, justifying everything they do. That is what happens when you give a regular person $50 million. They have no idea what to do with it. They don't know how to store value because they haven't built it up themselves. Historically, then they just waste it all. They buy golden statues of themselves, and then, good luck.
They could buy some preserved gold, like in the ad at the beginning.
I mean, real gold's great.
Yeah.
Hey, but I don't know how you liquidate a gold statue.
Cancel the statue. Cancel the statue.
What did you win the lottery?
It was only like $12,000 on scratch-offs.
Melted into bars.
Yeah. And debt is a tool, right? I mean, bankruptcy is a tool in regards to that.
David Ramsey would not agree.
He would not agree with that. Dave probably called me because I said I have a credit card. It's a business credit card, David. Just a couple of flights on it.
Well, this is the quick trick, right? So poor people and people who are working class and struggling use credit cards to make ends meet and stretch the extra mile because they're living paycheck to paycheck. Rich people have credit cards so they can earn rewards and everything's cheaper. Right. There was a I can't remember which comedian said this. It might have been George Carlin, that if you're rich and you have money in the bank gives you more money. Yeah. They just say, here's some more. And if you're poor, the bank says, I'm sorry, you don't have enough. We're taking some of what little you have. It's a ridiculous system. Yeah. So for people who are working class and living paycheck to paycheck, they're like, we got to put it on the credit card and we're going to have to pay down the minimum. And that's going to it's going to take from our net worth. And what can we do? Rich people are like, I use my credit card because I get 1% cash back. Now that TV was cheaper. And then after 6 months, I get a couple grand in rewards and just...
But here's my thing, going back to them raising 1.3, and if they are $20 million in debt, let's say they are. If they are, and they're going to operate by a system of deficits, this is the carryover from this Green New Deal mindset of modern monetary theory, where debts and credits, debts are more significant and they're more important, and they're okay to have debts because we can keep printing money, right? And they lived in this we'll just keep printing cash if that's what we need to do. I mean, what's $100 billion more to Ukraine? If she's going to run a campaign like that, and her people are going to do that administratively, what are they going to do to the country if she'd have gotten into power? They're going to try to operate, again, by modern monetary theory. That's the way they're going to do things. And it's going to be exponentially worse. So, I mean, it is something to think about.
But I think in terms of the campaign, $20 million in debt is meaningless to me. So if I was to buy an ad in Times Square, and they can range in various, they're it's not as expensive as people think. So I call the agent. I say, I'm going to buy the billboard because we want to advertise something. They say, okay. They send an invoice 2 weeks later. I now have $10,000 in debt. If you're running a presidential campaign, $20 million on a budget of $1 billion does not sound like that much. And if Kamala Harris went to a major TV buyer or went to, say, YouTube or a big tech platform and said, we're going to do a $50 million ad buy, here, we have $30 million credit in the account that we loaded, and then it goes to negative 20, it's just as simple as, okay, we'll pay you back at the end of the month. So I keep hearing this debt story, and there's no context to what any of it means. It's meaningless. They said she spent something like $500 million on a massive television campaign over a long period of time or whatever that was. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so she's spending 25 times or whatever this amount, and then all of a sudden the media is like, she's $20 million in debt. And I'm like, okay, so she writes a check and hands it to him? It doesn't mean anything.
The joke was that she spent $6 million to have the Call Her Daddy set rebuilt, and they
100,000.
Was it 100,000? They rebuilt it wrong.
100,000.
Oh, they did.
It was like the logo was off center.
So wait. She has a set, and they paid to create a second set.
Yeah, because
she didn't want to fly to where it was.
She didn't want to fly to the set, so they.
When I interviewed Trump, we had a hotel room. And they just put up some curtains and some American flags. Yeah. Why didn't Trump build a secondary Timcast set in D.C.?
That's actually honestly indicative of what the problem is, right? Which is that nothing is real. Like, you can't even trust your eyes anymore. Like, oh, she went to her. No, right. They rebuilt it. Whereas Trump's like, I'll come to you. We'll work with what we've got. There is a bullshit detector that the average everyday American has now that they can see right through this stuff.
But can I just say on that point, in the context, as you mentioned, the thing that bothers me is these are the people who were okay with the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal, when AOC was pushing that, looked like something that a 7-year-old drew on a piece of paper with a green crayon. Yeah. This was a $90 trillion infrastructure overhaul. 90 trillion is not a real number. That's not a real number in a real economy. And this was the kind of stuff and we thought, okay, that's a joke. This is coming out of a bartender from the Bronx's brainless, skull. But these people, they ratified it. They thought it was a good idea. So again, they're okay with this kind of stuff. So it does scare me. I mean, if she was willing to be frivolous with that, but you're right, Tim. I mean, 20 million versus 1.3 billion is blowing. You can blow that out of your nose.
Yeah, she may just have an outstanding, like they're like 20 million in debt, and it could just be like so. When you buy ads on Google,
we need an audit.
If you have an account on Google that's in good standing and you've been with them for a few years, they'll let you run a deficit for some time, especially if you have $1 billion and they know you do. So I'm not saying she did this, but if I create a campaign on Google, and we do campaigns on Google ads, I might wake up one day and see that I have $1,000 in debt, and I go, okay, and Google does not care. At the end of the month, I click pay, and then it's gone. Someone's going to come and be like, Tim Pool's $1,000 in debt. And I'm like, oh, shut up.
I mean, I think the more important part of all of that was just they spent this much money to lose that badly.
What was amazing is that Trump didn't have to spend all that money because he had organic support. Mm-hmm. And the Democrats had to pay for support that didn't do anything.
Well, he got a felony charge and 3 days later had $500 million raised.
That's right. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.